Well, hello, I would like to welcome everybody to the October 28th, 2024 City of Idaho Springs work session. We have three things on the agenda. And we're going to start off with right-of-way vacation.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will kick us off, and Scott, I actually can't fit all three of these on.
Let me see how much battery I got.
I've got another cord. Let me get on.
Okay.
American. Well,
Sure.
Yeah, my battery's pretty low, so I'm just gonna stay for a minute if I can.
Now I see Jimmy will not be able to make the meeting tonight, and Lisa won't be able to make the work session, correct?
All right, so
Thank you.
we're ready to get started. So the development team for the field house project at the former Gold Digger Field 4 Points. Looks like someone from your team, Stephanie's hopping on for the item as well. They've requested, just for some background, theirs was significant right of way that was vacated as part of the planned development. This was approved back in 2022, and we vacated a large portion, which is shown in the staff memo, to Central Alley to the, and it was vacated to the developer. We left a sliver, which is and I'll just share my screen so anyone online can see it as well. A sliver was left over, which is essentially like a diagonal retaining wall, and so it's kind of this diagonal. It is soil erosion wall and all this. At the time, there was no need for any kind of improvements, I guess, or work to be done in that area at the kind of toe of the wall generally. Back of curb for their entrance at this location is about that northern edge of that property line, in that box on the right hand side of the screen. However, recently its plans have changed slightly, and there's a proposal to install essentially to put fill on the back of the wall, the kind of height of the back of curb, and Stephanie might be able to explain it.
So the wall won't be as tall.
Yeah, so essentially they want to be able to fill kind of up on that concrete wall with fill, and then seed on top of that fill, and it essentially will just be a landscaped area as in that wall. Nothing's changing besides soil going on top of it, essentially. Now, we originally had talked about potential, we being staff, including Carmen, attorney, etc., talked about encroachment agreement for that, but that would be revocable. So instead, 4 Points has come to the city and asked, well, would you be open to vacating more of this wall? And then 4 Points would take ownership of that portion of the wall that's being vacated, or that area of right of way, essentially, and then they can fill on their property. The proposal would be to retain city ownership of that portion of concrete that's above where they want to put material. And so the city would maintain an approximately 3-foot width of right of way. And the purpose for that is legal purpose. You know, if you vacate, just vacate right of way, all of it, the entire width, then everything to the south half would go to the southern property owner, the north half would go to northern property owners. Simple for the city to do that, but the development team's proposal would be to use up more than half of the wall. And so if we only vacate a portion, like the city did the first time, the portion that's being vacated only goes to the adjacent property owner. So if you keep that northern strip, you essentially everything to the south of the right of way just goes to that property. And so that's the reason why it has this odd exhibit. As far as staff is concerned, and sure. So essentially, as far as
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones and so on.
Sounds good.
So as far as staff is concerned, there's no need for city right of way in this area. You know, it's
Right.
really benefits for soil erosion and not much else. There's no public access to there or anything like that. By the development team taking control of that portion of right of way and vacating it to them, it would reduce the city's, you know, sort of maintenance responsibilities and things like that. One thing I might mention is, we could, if this were to go forward, it would be first reading of an ordinance, second reading of an ordinance. This would get approved. We could then potentially just vacate the last 3 feet, and bottom 1.5 would then go to 4 points as well. And the top 1/2 foot would go to the northern property owners who are also here
Right.
tonight, just to listen in for another item. So
My one question is, so it sounds like you're just piling dirt on that area. We're gonna take the cement away and it's just gonna, what, is it gonna be an actual retaining wall? Cause it is a street, sort of, there is a part, not a street, it's a property that is there, and I don't really trust just a dirt wall as a retaining wall.
well, so you know, our engineer from JVA has reviewed it, and I don't have a great, it's kind of technical pictures, but essentially the wall would remain as is. They put kind of fill on top of it, so then instead of having this kind of wedge shape with the existing wall and then their kind of retaining wall for their road,
It'll fill
they
in
just wanna
that,
fill in that gap,
Okay.
keep the wall, and just it'll just have
Yeah,
soil on
And
top of
and
it.
frankly, the wall's not gonna be holding back as much.
Right,
You
yeah.
know, the wall won't be as tall.
Yeah, the exposed portion of concrete would go from what it is currently to, you know, a range of 2-3 feet
Okay.
at various.
I just thought this was a great segue into a far larger conversation about retaining walls throughout the city at some point in time, so. That will have to be a
Yeah,
conversation that we'll have to
Because
have.
they are a major liability.
They are all over for everybody. Well, not everybody.
Right,
Most people.
so that's essentially what's being proposed, is that vacation of about 10 feet of right of way as it's associated with that concrete diagonal wall. And then they would put soil fill on top of that and otherwise, and then assume this responsibility for that portion. We would still have approximately 3 feet of right of way.
All right, council, any questions?
I think, am I right, Andy? We have it as a first.
Hey, Jeremy, good to have you. Just wanted to make sure you didn't have any questions.
No, sir, no questions at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it's on the agenda. If we're happy to kind of move forward with ordinance first reading tonight, and then that can be posted, so the second read of the ordinance would be in the second meeting in November, I would guess. Yes.
All right, well then, next up, I am delighted to have many of the neighbors here in attendance. We will be talking about the Idaho Street between 11th Avenue and Minor, which we affectionately call the diagonal. And we have a request for a Ballard, I think I got voting on the line.
Who doesn't?
Placement, right? And Dylan, I assume you're taking this one as well?
Sure, and if it's okay with council, I might, you know, see potentially if Kim or Erica, or I don't know if anyone else from the area is in attendance, but I don't know if they have anything to say or
Yeah,
anything like that, but I can maybe kick it off with the city's perspective and then pass it along. So I'll share the screen again just for everyone who's online. So the neighbors or the folks living on this, in this portion, diagonal portion of Idaho Street that goes between Minor Street to the north and 11th Avenue and Idaho Street to the south and east, have come to see staff and talked about the future of this bit of street. It is, this is just looking at it from the north, you can kind of see this little triangle here is city. And then this is technically city right of way portion of road. Historically on this north side, there is a gate kind of on this northern end that can be closed, can be opened. When you look on the southern end, historically there was a dead end sign on this southern side, but that has been, that's no longer there. I'm not sure if it was knocked over, or if we removed it. Just fell down. So anyway, it was not, has not to date been replaced. But with the development going on adjacent to this roadway with, you know, potential with a lot more vehicles in the area and things like that, this has really historically just been local access, pedestrians, bikes, and then things like emergency access and maintenance. Paul has said that we do not do winter maintenance of this section of right of way. And so it just because of maintenance, just problematic things with the risk of property damage and limited service that the road provides. And so the owners have requested a more formalized way of ensuring that this is not a through road. The request would be for a bollard or a similar system that would essentially block it off access right in between the two houses that use this as a primary access, 1019 minus or 1019 to the west and 1027 to the east of Idaho Street. And so there would just be a bollard there. There would be key for things like emergency services, fire, maintenance, etc. But that would just make it impossible for folks to drive down this kind of section of road that is not super suitable for huge amounts of traffic. And then with that, probably there would be signage, one sign on either end that says not a through road or dead end or something to that effect.
I mean, are the neighbors using it as a through road? Do they want the, I mean, do you guys want the bollard there? Because no,
Yeah,
you can't. use
they
it.
actually, it was their
They're-
idea.
And I've heard the idea, but I wanted to make sure, because, all right, I'm good with that then.
Everybody on both sides of the street.
Is okay with
Since I
that.
opened the gate, people will fly in.
I think everybody knows how I feel about parking in this town, so whenever you can preserve your own parking, I'm 100% for it. Are you guys paying for it? No, I didn't hear that, okay.
So the other thing would be, it's kind of a good timing now because there will be sewer line, water line, kind of utility work in this roadway will have to be resurfaced for that. And so the city could easily come in as part of that and do the installation.
I don't know about any of you. I have been on that diagonal one time.
I've been on a
All the
couple, I have a
years.
friend that lived there, but yeah. There's no need to go down it, it's really pretty much a private little road.
So, any questions?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Is it the thought that the chain link fence on the north end at Minor would remain that gate, or would that go away with the installation of the bollard?
I think it would look better without the gate, honestly, because that area that we own also, that little triangle that we
That's your
own,
gate?
that's,
That's my
Okay.
gate, well, I mean, technically, but
Well,
the
right.
way they're cutting that road
Yeah.
goes through, they'd have to take that gate out.
okay, all right, so good to know.
So the neighbors are okay with that, once the bollard's there, so you could have access from either Minor down to the bollard or from 11th Avenue up.
Yeah. that
Okay,
would be
good,
great.
I just wanted to close that loop, make sure that, I thought that was the intent, but I didn't want to assume that figured when you brought up the fence there. As far as being open and closed, yeah.
All right, any further questions from council?
So I think then we don't need any formal, maybe a regular one, right? We just
It'll just go to staff for them
Yeah.
to design the road, so at that point in time, we're kind of out of it anyway, so
We
yeah.
just need to procure the bollard and we'll make sure. it's not
Actually,
one or
Kim
two.
was even kind enough to look up some bollard pricing for us. I think she got a.
300?
Yeah, it's a pretty
Yeah,
good deal.
Pretty good deal.
Well, I was, if I may, I was interested in a removable one.
Yeah.
In the off situation that someone needs a larger delivery for a backyard,
Sure.
front yard, or
Yeah.
Moving in.
it'd be nice that it had a key.
Sure.
We could check one out here or a lockbox somewhere, that if a neighbor needed to use it for a large
Absolutely.
vehicle, that we could.
Well, it's great for you guys, if you're moving, like you wanna be able to get in and not have to
Yeah.
back out to that corner, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Jeremy, any questions? All right. Okay, well, that will take care of the diagram. Just wanted to make sure we got some extra time here. Josh, any concerns?
I don't know what Kim's talking about. I wanted to raise the speed limit to 55
Right,
on that.
For the 15 feet of road that it is.
And post on Google
Yeah,
Maps.
definitely not, well, maybe cut this.
Shotgun.
sure.
The only thing in that, on that block, I know this is not the time or topic for it, but there's a really bad ice problem on the front of that corner on 10th and Minor. I think it's the worst sidewalk in town
I
at
didn't
the
know
moment.
that. On the sidewalk.
Yeah, and it's a low spot and it freezes from mid-December to March. It's just low drainage. And it just, I think the sidewalks are looking pretty good in town, in my opinion. That's the one real problem there is on 10th to, well, just on that corner, just on the corner of 10th and Minor. Different time,
Alright.
different subject.
All right, anything further before we move to our last item? All right, last up is our audit presentation.
Feel free to stay.
Welcome, welcome.
Hello, Mayor and board members. I'm Lorraine Schroeder with Professional Management Solutions. And as I do each year, I like to go through the audit with you so that you can feel like you know what's in there and you can delve in more later or put it on your shelf and say, I reviewed it and I'm good with it. So we'll start out this year with the management's discussion and analysis. It starts on page little note Roman numeral 1 in the front. And this is where I like to point out the highlights for you. If anyone says, oh, I saw the financial statement, the audit was on the agenda, how did we do last year? You can say, well, we had a net position of $49 million and our net position increased by $1.6 million. And you can go down this list and tout what the highlights are of the financial position at any time. And this can be useful throughout the year. You get somebody asking you or a student contacting you or a reporter or someone from CDOT saying, well, where are you gonna come up with this? How are you guys doing? You can, grab this and spew off through those little facts pretty easily. The net position of the
Lorraine, can I
government.
stop you just a moment? Does everybody know where we are? So this is, it's the audit, which is right after the opinion from the auditor.
No, it's actually right before, it's right
Right
after the
before?
table of
I'm sorry.
contents.
Okay. Where are you again? I'm going to.
I'm on the page, little Roman numeral 1.
Okay. Great, I just wanna make
Starting
sure.
out financial highlights.
Yep, with the financial
Okay.
highlights section there, that's right at the top of this management's discussion and analysis. And this is a required or recommended,
I'm sorry, what I meant to say is that there is a memo from our auditor
oh,
that precedes the actual audit, so I didn't want folks to be confused by that.
okay,
So-
yes,
Normally, our auditor would come in person, he's had some health issues, and just he did a memo to the council, the board, to in lieu of that, because he knew that Lorraine would be here to go over the audit more in depth, so. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't pick up on that right away.
Okay, is that,
So those are your highlights. As you might remember from years past, you have two different types of activities that are being measured here. You have tax-based activities and fees and charges-based activities. And all governments have this, this isn't unique to you. And each government has to do fund accounting to show the different types of operations that it does and to show things in a certain way that are prescribed for that type of operation. So you've got governmental activities, which are the general services that are provided by a city or town that no one else is generally providing, that you essentially have to do by virtue of being a city or a town. You want to provide building inspections, you want to provide planning services, you have to provide streets that are passable, you have to plow them, you have to do things that no one else is doing, it's the job of the government. And you're not charging anyone for those generally on a pay-as-you-go basis. You're not charging them to ride down the streets or to use the street. You're not charging them to use the sidewalks, whatever, to come to a city council meeting. So it's a general government activity that's primarily tax-based. And you want to have the city government, and so the tax base is what funds it. Now, there are fees and services that are paid for within those governmental activities. For instance, you have to pay to get a building permit to have your individual property inspected. You pay for a specific program that you're gonna, participate in or something. But it's a general government activity, and so they're measuring the flow of financial resources. Is the city collecting enough taxes to pay for the services that the citizens want and desire and are required to have? You're not looking at the overall value of those city streets, if you would ever sell it, your net worth, the way another type of company might be evaluating it. You're looking at the flow of financial resources. So those are your governmental activities. And you can see in the third bullet, it says the net position of the city's governmental activities decreased by $402,000 during 23. And it's primarily due to the depreciation of those capital assets wearing down, not being as valuable as they had been in the past. The business type activities increased by $2 million during 2023. But this was primarily due to the institution of sales taxes for water and wastewater, which is unusual because these are fee-for-service activities primarily, and so they're called enterprise funds or proprietary funds where you're running a business and charging a customer for the services or the goods that they buy or use. So here you've got reasons why you decided to also add a sales tax, but they're still trapped in the old way of a business enterprise. Does it pay for itself? Are they charging their customers the right amounts to treat the water, get it to their houses, get it to the wastewater plant and treat it again? And so you'll see these two different business type versus governmental type activities focused on in this report. Then you have the old way or the more typical way of tracking those governmental services where we talk about your fund balances. And again, you're not looking at the whole net worth of the streets and the buildings, et cetera. You're looking to see if you're charging the right tax rate to provide the services that are needed. And that's where you each month you get the financial statements from us that show you the fund balances going up and down and the revenues coming in and expenditures going out. And those governmental funds reported ending fund balances of about 7 million, but they decreased from 2.4 million from the year before. And there's a couple reasons why, so we're gonna look into those. The small Roman numeral 3, that's where you have this condensed net position for the city of Idaho Springs at the end of 23. And net position is what you've amassed over all time the day that the city was incorporated. So from then till now, at the end of 2023, your governmental activities had a total net position of 33 million. That bottom line in the leftmost column there. If you look up at the top of that leftmost column, you see that there's current assets in there, which means liquid assets, money, receivables that are coming in, but mostly money in the bank. And then non-current assets of 35 million. So you do have non-current assets, including this building and those streets, that are worth 35 million. So you've got a net position, you've got liabilities against those two, things you have to pay out, bills that had come in at the end of the year that hadn't been paid yet at December 31st. Bonds that you issued for street improvements that have to be paid over 40 years or whatever it was, that you have to pay off 8.9 million in those. So there's other drags down on those current assets, but you still end up with this net position of 33 million. You'll see in a minute when we get to the fund balances, your fund balances are nowhere near 33 million, because those are the liquid assets. This middle section there is the business type activities, and they are always shown with all their assets, because you could sell your water system, you could sell it to a metro district, you could sell your wastewater treatment operation, you could, and then in that case, you would value the cost, the value of those plants, all the pipes in the ground, the pump stations, the lift stations, everything. And so you want to always keep total track of that and depreciate it and see when you're going to have to replace it if you're going to have enough money to do it. So it's tracking the flow of economic resources with your assets, your liquid assets, your capital assets, what's in the ground, what's in the bank drawers. So that's what brings why we have these different items mentioned here, and why I do so much focusing on the fund by fund in the financial statements each month. They each have to be tracked separately, and they're tracked different ways. Over on page Roman numeral 4 is what's your net position, your changes in net position. So that's your income statement for just 1 year. So the condensed net position on the left was overall time, where you've gotten to by now. Over here on the right is just what happened during 2023 that changed that. So that's why down at the bottom of governmental activities, you'll see a decrease in net position of 402,000. And you take that away from the net position beginning of 33.9 and end up with that net position of 33.5 for this 1 year's change in net position. And so up there you can see where it says program revenues. And those are those revenues that come in from a building permit or from a grant for a specific project, a specific program. And then under it, those are like 6-digit figures, 328,000, 461,000. Down below it are your general revenues, and see that big one, almost 4 million in sales taxes. That's what's carrying the weight for your governmental activities. And of your 6 million in revenues, 4 million were from sales taxes, 195 in property taxes, other taxes, 117. So it's your governmental organization that really needs tax revenue to operate. You see the program expenses down below: general government, public safety, public works, culture and recreation, 6.5 million. So you've drawn down your fund balance by the difference between what came in that year and what you spent that year. This is over all of your governmental funds. So some of them are intended to be spent down, and they were. And we're going to look at the individual funds in a second. First, we'll look at the business type activities revenues. See, their revenues are almost all program revenues. Charges for services, 3.2 million. They are charging the water and sewer customers and the people that are parking for your parking enterprise. And then there is that 950,000 for sales and use taxes, which is what's new this year. So that's their revenue of 4.3 million, and they had expenses of 2.28 million. So they had a big increase that year of 2 million that they line up from the bottom and under the business type 2023 column, an increase of 2.012 million, but almost half of that was from the sales taxes, 949. So that shows you two things. Your sales taxes are doing what you were hoping it would do, it's buoying these funds, but it didn't go up by just 949,000 from sales taxes. The bottom line went up by another million from your charges for services and your operations. So you're getting to the point, at least in 23, where you were getting enough from your charges for services to pay for the expenses that you had during the year. Over on the next 2 pages are some charts and graphs that aren't so dollar figure centric, but you'll see on that top one, it shows revenues by source for the governmental, again, this is the things you have to do as a government, is tax base. And if you look at this pie chart and look what would be noon if it were a clock, that's where the legend starts. So at noon, there's that blue one that says 5.3%. The legend says charges for services. You go down to about 3:30, and there's the sales and use taxes, 64.7%. So around 2/3 of that general fund is coming in from sales and use taxes. This chart below that says expenses and program revenues puts into picture form the fact that your expenses for general government are more than your program revenues. They're supported by taxes. Your expenses for public safety are way more than fees for, a police report or something that shows there. Your expenses for public works, street maintenance, primarily in these funds, is way more than program revenues you get for permits, et cetera. Same for Parks and Rec, Parks and Culture. The right-hand page is the opposite picture. 3/4 of that revenues by source is from charges for services. The quarter, though, is from sales and use taxes. And then down below, it shows you the program revenues for water are outpacing the water expenses. The red bar revenues for wastewater are slightly outpacing the wastewater expenses. And the revenues for parking are way outpacing current expenses for parking. Now, that's because you're gonna have big draws on that for capital at some point fairly soon. So you're trying to build those up in advance. That's the main gist of this MD&A. Page 7 goes into each of the major funds, which are the ones that are big enough to be considered major. They have more than 10% of the assets or liabilities or revenues and expenditures. And so you have 3 of those. You have the general fund, the sales tax improvement fund, and the 1% street sales tax fund. And this just gives you a synopsis in verbiage if you ever need to read that back to somebody. And then you have all 3 of your business enterprise funds are major funds. So we're going to skip over to the next page, number 9. And actually the paragraph leading into it, where it says capital assets, gives you a quick list of all the capital projects you did here in 2023. That's the bottom of page 8. It says, note 5 of the financial statements provides a summary of changes in capital assets during the year. And then it lists off a bunch of these. You completed improvements on Minor Street, Colorado Boulevard, purchased land and buildings, made water storage and treatment improvements, purchased police, computer, and public works equipment, made improvements to City Hall, Citizens Park, CRC Play Park, Library Park, Hose House, continued stages of development of Virginia Canyon Mountain Park Trail System, worked on the mobility hub, paved areas at the wastewater treatment plant, continued to work to replace the Chicago Creek water supply line to accommodate a hydropower generation unit. That's huge. This is really impressive for a city your size to have accomplished all of that in 1 year. And you're still going strong, and these financial statements are looking good. So you might want to earmark that page, because if you're rattling off those highlights that are in the first paragraph that are kind of the typical ones of this one up that one up, this is really a big highlight that you did all that, has these good results, and spent a lot of money accomplishing needed improvements that are going to last a long time. We'll go over to the end of this letter. We'll skip to the rest of that, and we'll look at the letter that came from Mayberry and Company, your auditors. They are always independent. You're required to have an independent audit every single year. Every city and town in Colorado is. And Mayberry and Company gives you this auditor's report, which is prescribed. They have to cover the topics that are in here. But the key is right at the top of it in the second paragraph, where they say, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information for the city of Idaho Springs as of the end of 2023. So that's a clean opinion. That's what you want. That's what you usually get. So you're in good shape there. This explains what they do and what they don't do. They did say in all material respects, they don't check every single receipt that ever came in and see if anything ever got charged the wrong line item. But they test a lot, and they test to the point of materiality in each and every department and revenue category. And then they look at the way it was done, who approved it. They do a lot of work to verify that these are reliable statements that anyone can use to see what your financial position is in order to decide to move here, to start a business here, to lend the city money, that. So that's great. When we get to the meat of the financial statements, so page 4 is the statement of net position. We had a condensed one in that management discussion and analysis that I went over pretty well, so I'm not gonna go through the full-fledged one or the full-fledged statement of activities on page 5. We went over that change in 1 year. So these are the same 2 reports with more information, more detail. But I am gonna spend some time on pages 6 and 7. Page 6 says balance sheet, governmental funds. And again, these are the ones for your police, you give to the fire department, your parks and recreation, culture, public works, admin. And these are the major funds that you have: general fund, sales tax improvement fund, 1% street tax fund, and other funds. So whenever there's a revenue that's earmarked for only a certain thing, you have to show a separate fund to track it, and only don't mingle it in with the general fund. So you have the sales tax improvement fund where you are putting 1% of the sales taxes, you have 5% sales tax. 1 goes in this fund, 2 go in general fund, 1 goes in street fund, and the 5% is split between water and wastewater. So we have to track where each of these funds ends up and what came in and went out. Down at the bottom, the second line up is the fund balances for those funds. That column that says other funds are your non-major funds, and they're shown on page 46 if you want to, delve into those. But going to page, I said 7 earlier, I should have said 8, is the revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance that you're used to seeing each month. So here's your general fund. It shows the fund balance beginning, second line from the bottom, started at $1.8 million, ended at $1.7 million. So you can see more detail here by each fund instead of the totals that were on those charts I went over before. But just for the general fund, taxes came in at 2.3, et cetera, total revenues 3.4, and expenditures were 3.6. So you drew down your fund balance by 147,000. Each year we talk about what your fund balance should be. You want to have enough in your fund balance so if something goes awry, a big flood, or you have a tornado or some devastating landslide or something that takes out your tax base, you still have to process those building permits, get the public safety rolling. You may have even bigger expenses than usual, fix the streets, everything. You have to have some money there in the bank that you can use for that until such time as you might get, insurance or FEMA money or something of that nature. And so you want to have a fund balance that makes you feel comfortable that you can take care of things if needed. It would be really nice in a smaller city to have a whole year's worth of fund balance. Because if it's taking you 9 months or 12 months and you don't have a big spread out city like Aurora, to have a tornado hit in one area, but you still have another shopping center that's generating money, you could have a catastrophic incident much more easily than a bigger place can.
And we're like 6 months.
And now you've got about 6 months, right? Because a year of expenditures is 3.6. You've got about $1.7 million in there, but it's been coming down lately. And so it's something that we've talked about and it's being considered with the budget preparation, et cetera. You want to keep your eye on that for the general fund, because those are the services you have to provide, and you want to be ready. The sales tax improvement fund is different. You've got that 1% sales tax that comes in. You started this year with 5.2 million. You had enough in there that you could start some big projects, and so you had capital outlay 3.5 million. You can't just do a few $100,000 here or there and get big things accomplished. you can do that for the smaller things. But you do want to build this up and then get a big project going, which you really showed that you did a lot of expenses during 2023. See that 3.5 in capital outlay? So when this fund gets drawn down, it's not so critical because this is for improvements. If you had a terrible situation, you could wait to do improvements. You just need to fix what you have or keep your ongoing services going. Same with the 1% sales, street sales tax. You did 451,000 in those this year. You're paying for your street bonds in there every year, 600 and some thousand every year. So you drew this down by about a little under 200,000 from 1.6 to 1.4. You don't want these funds to just keep building up and building up. Neither do you want the general fund. At some point, you could be accused of overtaxing people if it just builds and builds and builds. But you want it to be ample. And so that's your decision in the budget. Where do we want our fund balance to be? What is ample? What is prudent? What can we realistically do? How much do we need? I'm going to skip over to the proprietary funds now, the enterprise funds, and they're on page 10. This is the balance sheet again over all of time, what they've amassed. These total up to the same numbers that were on the first page, only it shows the three parts of it instead of just the total. It shows the water, wastewater, and parking. And page 11 shows you the beginning fund balance and ending fund balance and how it changed during 23. So looking at water, its change in net position went up 837,000 in 1 year. And a lot of that was due, about half of that, to tax, the sales tax revenue. If that keeps happening, at some point you may be comfortable enough to look at that again and see how long you need to keep doing that. Utility charges at the top, 1.3. Your operating expenses were 1.0. And so that line, if you draw an arrow on operating income or loss, to me is one of the key lines in this whole book. Page 11, operating income or loss. And it shows how each of these funds is operating. And none of those three were operating at a loss during 2023, even before other income from sales tax came in. So this is based on charges and services and those services provided. So that's good. Wastewater was similar to water, and parking, as I mentioned before, is in that building mode. You had a lot of revenues and very few expenses right now. Soon, you'll be seeing a lot of expenses when you start building parking facilities. So I'm going to talk about on the financial statements part, except for page 14. Unlike all places don't have fiduciary funds, you have a lease pension fund that's done. It's just here because it used to be, it's in the 2022 totals that are shown on page 12 or some of the page 14 and 13. So it's still showing, but right now you just have this Hanson Cemetery Trust, which is money that you are the logical holder of, and it's not really your money. It's a fiduciary fund. Getting into the notes, there's just information here that you can read through that interests you about the reporting entity, these different types of funds, proprietary and governmental. There's descriptions on page 17, brief of what each of the funds are that you have and why you have them. There's definitions of certain terms. If you run into it on one of the previous pages, you're like, what's the prepaid expense? It'll tell you that. When you get over to page 22, and it gets into your cash and investments and how where you have that and if there's any money restricted, how all of your deposits are protected through FDIC or collateral required at the banks that are holding all those monies. The fact that you have a local government investment pool, which is on page 23. You have money in CSAFE, which is an entity formed by the state legislature so that you can pull your money with other cities and towns and get better interest returns than you can get on your own, assuming you have the time to invest on your own, which most places don't. Top of 23 shows what can be done with your municipal funds. They're very restricted and very conservative in what you can invest in. But there are some things there, commercial paper and certain guaranteed investment contracts that have good yields. And but the C-Safe is the perfect vehicle for you. And you've been earning well over 5% interest during the past year, and you've seen that those interest rates go up and the revenues go up in each of your monthly reports.
I just want to point out, this actually is one area that almost tripled from 2022, 109,000 going like to 313,000 in 1 year. So
Right.
that was a huge difference.
Partly because of the interest rates going up, and partly because you took money that had been sitting in your checking account, so
Right,
not
not
earning
getting any
interest,
ramp.
and started using these more judiciously. Then you've got other parts here that explain various receivables, capital assets on page 25 and 26. There's two tables. The first one's for the governmental capital assets. The second one on page 26 is for the business type. And it shows you what happened during that year, what the depreciation was on the vehicles versus buildings versus the plant investment. Over here on page 27 is note 7, long-term debt. Now you've got a lot of capital, you've also got a fair amount of long-term debt. In the governmental activities, you've got one main long-term debt, and that was the 2018 sales tax revenue bonds. So it tells you there what the balance was at the beginning of the year, what got repaid and what the ending balance is, what's due within a year, what interest you're gonna have to pay. And over, right under that, or top of the next page, it describes that whole bond issue for you, how much it was, when it was issued, what it was for, what the interest rates are, and when you're gonna get it paid off. So this is really good information if you're getting curious and nervous about your debt. Every one of your debt issuances is described here. When you look at the bottom of page 28, it's the same thing for your water and wastewater activities. And you've got a lot more there, individual Colorado Water Conservation Board notes from a couple of years, leases, Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority notes, around 6 million, 5.5. Advances from other funds, where one of your governmental funds loaned money to wastewater fund. So you've got a lot of debt there, and we look at that each year in the budget process, make sure you're on track to pay it off. Generally, if there's a reason to refinance, interest rates change, or you need to get it paid off sooner, that's talked about and thought about at various times during the year, partly when I'm working on the audit and also when we do the budget. You've got several pages there of information on each and every one of those. Then you've got several pages on the police pension plan, and a part of the state plan. It's in relatively good shape, so that's not a worry. And then you've got some additional notes about this and that near the end. The back of the book is required information about the pension plan, fire and police pension plan. And then there's budgetary information. So before there's just hard numbers. This is what happened, this is what happened. But back here, you're like, well, how does that compare to our budget? Did what we expect happen? Or are we way off course, or what happened here? So it's good to look through these, like page 42. And you'll see what was budgeted for property tax, 202,000, 195,000 came in. Not a big variance, but that's something that Andy and I can look at during the budget process. How are we doing on these forecasts? Are we close? Are we under budgeting? Is there more money that's going to come in that we need to count on and not be overly conservative, or vice versa? And these really tie to your monthly financial statements. We focus on that a lot in the monthly ones. But here's the audited version that comes out in this audit. And that in the rest of the book will show information for each fund that way. Page 46 is where those other funds, the small ones that aren't major funds, are shown individually, and the totals come over to those front pages. Page 46 shows you two other funds. They're not necessarily little, but they're not major. Is Ramp Fund, and that's for Colorado Boulevard, and the Conservation Trust Fund, the lottery revenues that you can use for parks generally. Then you get these budget to actual pages, starting on 48 for every fund that, every other, all the rest of the funds. What the budget was, what the actual was, what the variance was. It goes through page 52, which is pretty much the end of the useful part of the book. There's a required report that has to go to CDOT each year about certain highway revenues and expenses. Went through it. I'm happy to answer any questions now or any time in the future. But I feel like you're in good shape. The main things to keep your eye on are the general fund balance and also your water and wastewater balances and the sales tax there, and when and if you want to take another look at sales tax revenues for water and sewer services.
All right, council, any questions?
I actually do have a question. Lorraine, do you think that we're taking in too much money for the water? Because I mean, I know that we have plans for that. So I don't want, I wouldn't want a resident to think that we're accruing money for no reason. We have a great need in the future for our for money in the water fund.
Yeah, so these audits are retrospective. You're looking at what happened in 23 and where you are. Your budget is prospective, and you're saying, okay,
Right.
here's what that ending area was. Here's our big old need that wasn't shown in 23.
Right.
So you just want to keep that in mind. I wouldn't ever get complacent about that. Every year I would look at that and what your planned needs are for capital improvements coming up.
Yes.
But do look at it and think that
I think this, if that is a surplus, and I use that word very, very, very loosely, it's only 10% of what we need for a big humongous project that's coming up, so. Yeah.
Jeremy, just wanted to make sure you didn't have any questions for Lorraine.
No questions. Makes sense to me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thanks. Thank you for your attention. And I'll see you at your regular meeting.
Well, you wanna, we do have a little bit of time,
Should I do the financials?
would you mind?
Do you,
Oh,
yeah,
that'd be
that'd
fine.
And
save you time.
I might mention, that we, Lorraine and I are taking a hard look at the budget for 25. We've already seen a draft proposed budget. We're looking at how we allocate costs among the various funds. So in the next week or so, we'll be reviewing that, maybe making some adjustments, and we'll bring one more version of the proposed 2025 budget to you on the date on my head, and it went out of my head.
The 12th?
The 17th. Oh, so we will have a work session on the off week to try to wrap up the budget, because we do need to adopt it in early December. So we really need to pretty well have it done for the most part by mid-November. So that'll be our last look at it. We're gonna try to do what we can for raises for employees. We've heard loud and clear that we know that that's our most valuable asset, and that's what really provides the bulk of our services. We need all the capital projects, and we need the resources and the equipment, but we need good people. And we've been fortunate not to have a lot of turnover in the recent years here, and want to do what we can after going through a pretty high inflationary time. Things are settling down a little bit, but people are still feeling the the high costs in a number of areas. So we are looking very closely at that. We'll have another draft proposed budget for you for this meeting on the 17th. And then we may have a couple other agenda items for the 17th, just because we're starting to run out of year here. We've got a regular meeting right before Thanksgiving, the week after, and then we've got our regular meeting, that first meeting in December. Typically, we don't meet that second regular meeting in December. We take that off. With the holidays. Just wanted to give you a little preview of what's coming up.
I do think it's the 18th. The 17th is the Sunday. Yeah.
Monday, okay, we won't meet on Sunday.
Just clarifying.
Thank you, yeah, on the 18th, yeah.
I can go through these. Do you want me to share my screen? If so, I probably need to be elevated. I just signed into Zoom, which I hadn't done earlier.
This, the financials in our packet.
Financials.
Oh,
And this is in the regular
If
meeting
you have
packet,
them
so.
in front of you,
Yeah.
and you don't want them on the screen, then I'll just not do the Zoom. That seems a little bit complicated. What do you prefer, though? I can do it either way.
We have them.
Yeah,
Okay.
you got it.
And I'm gonna leave. Okay. So the first page
One
of the
second.
financials, when you get
Ryan,
there,
hang on one
let me
second.
know when you found it.
Yep, so it is on page in the packet. It is right after the goals, I believe.
Page 123.
Is it attached?
123 in the scanned packet, so if they're looking for that. This is a September financial report. Thank you.
The first page always shows your combined cash. And you have these 8 or so bank accounts of different types, including that C-Safe and the Colo Trust, which are the local government investment pools, and your checking and your payroll checking, et cetera, your money market. And the cash at the end of September was 8.194 million. And the second part of that page shows which funds own what percent of those funds. So the general fund has 1.3 million of those are because of operations of the general fund, revenues coming in, bills being paid. And you see down below the other allocations. So we highlight that one that says allocation to general fund, because you'll see how things come forward from this page onto the funds one by one. So going to the next page on this report, which is page 124 of your PDF, it shows general fund, and there's that same figure. Cash from the combined fund is $1,375,000. And then you have cash with the county treasurer because they collect things for you that haven't been over yet. You have other assets and receivables. And so you have about total assets of 2.3 million at the end of September against total liabilities of 1.02. So down at the bottom of this page, 124 or page 2 of the report itself, it says fund balance. That is the beginning fund balance for the whole year. And everything below that is showing you revenue over expenditures year to date. So when we just went through this last year's fund balances, the general fund balance was 1,738,000 at the end of 2023. So far through 2024, you've reduced that by 429,000. So you're still trending down on drawing that down. Well, you can do the math. There's about 4 years left if you draw that much down every year. So that's something to be real careful about. Not all of it's because of ongoing expenses. You have a lot of those capital projects that don't get done every year that drags it down, but we really keep track of that in your budget. Beginning fund balance, expected revenues and expenditures, and ending fund balance. The next page, 125, shows the revenues for the year, and it shows 2 years of actual of what year to date, which means through September 30th of 22 through September 30th of 23. So you can see for the total property sales and use taxes, 1.7 million in 1 year, 1.7 million in the next year. This year, to date, you've got 1.9 million. And we would expect and hope to see that as you would get out of the post-lockdown years. But you do want to keep your eye on that because the increase, the sales tax itself was 1.3 in 22, 1.4 in 23, and now it's a little under 1.4 in 24. So that's your key revenue in this fund. These that are highlighted are your top 10 revenues in the general fund. So you just want to scan, you can see where you are compared to the previous years and where you are compared to budget. Obviously, September is 3/4 of the way through the year. So if revenues come in evenly through the year, you would hope to see 75% there. They don't all come in evenly. Some of them have seasons where you get more or less. Going down to fines, you see those have gone up quite a bit during this year so far. And then going to the page 126, you see the total fund revenues for general fund are at 79% for the year. Now, you've gotten all your property tax you're generally going to get, those are due through July mostly, so there'll be some drips and drabs that come in. So that's a pretty good sized revenue that's not evenly distributed, but sales tax usually comes in higher in the summer and in the Christmas season. So you're looking okay on your revenues compared to budget. Then we get to the expenditures and you have the same type of information with the different columns through September of those other years, what this year's budget is. And I usually just look at the totals on these by department. So the streets department, compared to its budget, has spent 62% of its budget through September. A lot of its budget is going to be plowing and stuff in the cold months. Administration is on page 130, is at 87%. Some of that has to do with insurances and premiums of things that are paid in the front of the year that don't have to be paid in the end. You want to keep an eye on that. You also have some salary savings there with vacant positions. Community promotion is at 60% of what was budgeted. Building inspector is at 185%, but that should have offsetting revenues because you shouldn't have any expenses for building inspection without having collected permit fees for that. And we have the police expenditures, the totals are shown on page 132, and they're at 88% at 3/4 of the way through the year. Keep an eye on also. Support is at 75%, right on the bingo. And then fire department, you make a contribution to the Coal Creek County Emergency Services, and you're at 80%. So I don't know if that's not sent over evenly quarterly, but just keep your eye on that contract and what you're supposed to send. Parks is at, that's it, 67%, so it's a little under budget. And then your cemetery expenditures nothing's been reported there. And your total fund expenditures are at 83% of budget. Revenues were at 70-something%. So again, that bottom line, it says in the third column on the right, net revenue over expenditures or under is under by 429,000. That's that figure we saw on the first page. We looked at the beginning fund balance and year-to-date changes was the minus 429,000. Cemetery trust fund is no real activity, just some interest earned. The ramp fund on page 137 shows you still have $668,000 from the money that was given to you by the state to start taking care of Colorado Boulevard instead of them maintaining it. So that will ultimately be drawn down year after year as you use it, and then it will no longer be there and you'll have to absorb all the costs for maintaining Colorado Boulevard. It had good interest earnings though, 28,000 for the year so far. And not too much work done this year on that particular fund's projects. Improvement fund, here's where I like to look at page 140, the balance sheet for a few minutes. This, under the assets, we have the cash in the combined checking accounts. We have cash with the county treasurer for the money that comes just for this fund, auto sales tax. And then you have that fourth item there, 2019 advance due from the wastewater fund. It still owes this fund $1.4 million. So having that wastewater fund have a good showing will enable you to pay back this fund sooner, and it can be used on its more intended uses going forward. So that's a good thing. But look on page 141, there's the revenues coming in from this year's sales taxes, building use tax, motor vehicle use tax, donations. There's that 200,000 that came in, and that was for the trail. Correct, Andy?
No, we got 250 for the trail.
Yes, I'm sorry, that is, you're right. Yep.
But I thought it was 250 from the bike company. Wasn't that the donation?
Right, I think this might not be the entire, I think we got some of it last year. I think it came in over 2 years.
Oh, okay.
It came over 23 and 24, and it was split between those 2 years.
But that's a nice chunk of change coming in as a donation and shared cooperative agreement, like go. We've got a big GoCo grant budgeted and a DOLA grant budgeted from the federal. Those haven't come in yet, but you have gotten some from the state EIAF. And then you've got improvements listed for all these projects on page 142. And again, this budget, you've got 4.3 million in capital projects just in this 1 year budget. And you've already had almost 3 million of them spending on those. And I'm sure there's gonna be a lot more showing in October. In the public works facility alone, $1.7 million. And I see you're gonna have your open house this week, so congratulations on that. Total fund expenditures for this improvement fund, 3.5 million, that's on page 142. And again, you're drawing down this improvement fund by doing these capital projects. So you're drawing it down $1.7 million, and that's what it's for, to be used.
Lorraine, I might mention on the grants, you saw that some of them hadn't been drawn down, but some of those reimbursements are done, depending upon the type of grant, are done quarterly. And some are done at the end of the project. For instance, GoCo, Greater Outdoors Colorado, like the trails, that's typically done at the end of the project. You do one big report and then you get reimbursed for that.
Good.
The DOLA grants, typically you have to do quarterly reports, so that it's a little more regular report for some of the bigger projects too.
So those monies will come rolling in when the quarter passes.
Yep.
And they send the money. Okay, Conservation Trust Fund is on page 143, and it doesn't have much activity. You've taken the stance mostly to let this build up and do big things with it rather than using it to pay for mowing of parks in the summer and things like that. So you've had, you get money from them quarterly. You've got about 3/4 of the year of revenues come in are a little lower. It's showing 67% of what was budgeted. Those are lottery ticket sales that are shared with municipalities. And you've got a $90,000 budget here, but nothing's been drawn against that yet.
Right now, we're in design for rehabbing Courtney Riley Cooper Play Park. So we'll be seeking some grant funding for that as well to try to get that play park redone.
And again, it's its own fund. It can only be used for these types of projects. And so it'll stay there. And if you don't spend it this year, then you'll be there ready to spend in a future year. Just because you budgeted it this year doesn't mean it goes away if you don't do it this year.
We use the Conservation Trust Fund monies to redo the Macy Root Bill Park Play Park a number of years ago. So that's an example of it, build up, and then we applied the funding to redo the play equipment there.
1% street sales tax fund. It has a fund balance of $1.4 million at the beginning of the year. You see that on page 146 highlighted. Cash. And you have revenues this year of another $700,000 so far from the sales tax that goes into this fund that your voters approved, that sales tax for streets. And then you earn interest of 42 grand. So that, again, that's great. You already earned more than you budgeted for interest earnings in this fund. And then page 148 shows your expenses so far. And year to date, you've had almost $500,000 in engineering for projects. And then you pay your bonds, those street sales tax bonds, out of this fund. So in 18, you issued bonds, you've got the sales tax passed, you've got a big influx of money, 8 million or so. When you issued the bonds, you did a bunch of things right away, and then you're using sales tax that comes in now to do more things and to pay off those bonds over their lifetime. Their principal is paid once a year, so you'll be seeing that budget amount of $240,000 hit in 1 month. I think it's December 1st, where that'll be paid. The interest is paid a little more frequently. Water fund, page 149. That still shows all your assets and the liabilities. And let's go to revenues and expenditures on page 150. And there's the sales tax, year to date, 347,000, about 67% of what the budget was. Charges for services, 50, coming up on 60%. See how on the period actual column, there's really nothing there for the charges for services. That's because you bill every other month. It doesn't mean you won't get 2 months worth next month. So that'll pop that up to closer to what you would expect to see for 3/4 of the year elapsed. DOLA grants budgeted down below. Again, those, as Andy mentioned, you draw after you do the work. And so some of that will probably be requested later this year and come in. Operational expenditures, page 151. You see just a lot of items there, financial services, professional fees, which could be engineering, insurance, office equipment, electricity and gas. These are your big line items in the operations, and chemicals. Then your distribution of the water, the pipes. This is for repair and maintenance on your pipe system, an antenna reed box. And then you have those big capital projects down the bottom of page 152, where you've already spent $250,000 on water treatment plant upgrades this year. You've got more budgeted. The next page, 153, is your budgets for your principal and interest on those notes, Colorado Water Conservation Board notes. 154 is your wastewater fund, and this has routinely been your most worrisome fund. It's in fair shape now, but we did highlight that amount on liabilities that's due to the sales tax improvement fund. We saw it as an asset or receivable on the sales tax improvement fund. It's owed to them from the wastewater fund, so it's a liability over here. It's owed to them, and if we can get that repaid, it'll reduce these liabilities by that amount. It'll also reduce your cash. The money has to flow out of here. You've got a 1.6 in cash at the top and 1.4 that's owed to this other fund. Revenues on page 155 is similar to the water fund with the sales taxes coming in. No billings this month, but there'll be 2 months worth of billings next month. And everything looks on track there. DOLA grant that you'll be drawing on as you do the work. Expenditures for operations are at 64.3% for the year. The collections 58%. And you've got some capital plans there that are showed with very little done so far this year. 158 is your big interest and principal payments due to the Colorado Water Resources and Power Development Authority, coming to about 100,000. And those have been, you'll have double that for each of the principal amounts and interest amounts when the second payment is done this year. Be about 200,000, 118,000. And your last fund is your parking fund. Again, you have cash of about 850,000. You've got revenues coming in year to date of 450,000, interest of 20 grand. That CDOT contribution you won't be getting this year, but that'll keep being budgeted for whatever year that project takes off. And then you've got your expenses, which are mostly engineering and capital projects that you're working on so far. Preparing things. And that's the end of the September statements. So this is the look ahead and where you are now compared to where you ended last year.
All right, any questions?
There is always.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me do this now, and I won't see you at your 7 o'clock meeting.
All right,
but have a
all right.
Good meeting. It's
Well,
nice to see
thank you very
everyone.
much.
My pleasure, thank you.
Good to see us
Thank you.
in person, and hey, we still got like 15 minutes.
Okay, great, thank you. Good night.
Safe driving back down.
Thank you.
Yeah, really.
What's the combined meeting on the November 12th with planning commission?
That's the housing, right?
It was, the extended stay.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Lodging ordinance that came to council, I guess it was about a month ago now, for review. There's some issues to work out, and council had requested a joint work session to.
What, the extended stay, we're not talking about SDRs, what's an extended stay, is that the different,
That'd be like,
gotcha, alright, gotcha, that's my,
Motels that aren't motels.
yeah, that's my day of surgery, I really wanted to be on that meeting, I apologize that I won't be around for that one.
So there's been a first reading of an ordinance, and so we're in between first and second reading now, and this was an opportunity to refine that, perhaps that ordinance, make some changes to second reading and what's finally adopted
Right.
for regulating extended stay.
Gotcha.
And also give the opportunity for operators to come in and discuss their,
Yeah.
not needs, but.
The actual residents
Yeah,
as
as
well as
well
the
as
operators. I think both sides is important.
Actually,
Yeah.
So you want to just touch on the, how that's being promoted? Got a letter going out, right, to the operators, and then also the.
yeah, it'll be a letter, like a public notice thing to operators. It's gonna go out at the end of the week, once the time of the work session is confirmed. And then we're also just gonna post it in the paper. So that way it's like a public posting as well, just to say, hey, there's this joint work session that doesn't happen very often, but it's an important topic for community members, business owners, everyone. And so.
I think it's gonna
Distributed
draw-
to residents, or
Well,
the operators can give it, the notice to the residents, right?
yeah, I think there's part of the issue with, distributing. Part of the issue is I don't know who's a resident of some places, right? Like there's some places
I
that,
think the owners can post it with their residents.
right, yeah, and that maybe is encouraged, maybe I'll add something that's encouraging that if they're interested to attend, because, but there might be a hotel that operates mostly as a hotel, but has a few residents, and the city would never know about it until there was some sort of oversight, I suppose, so I'm not knocking on doors or something like that. to try
Right, no, I understand, and
Yeah.
I was just curious, I think it's actually gonna draw quite a few people, not only the residents and the owners, but residents around the businesses that, obviously want the housing, they might have their own opinions and stuff like that, so.
Right, yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance involved that is worthy of more discussion, certainly, so.
Yes, it'd be interesting to see where it goes.
I'm gonna definitely save the video. And when I'm alerted enough. And then I just have a question without raising too many, opening too many cans of worms. Wall Street, and what I call West Wall, I think they use it now. And Chuck, you've been here way longer than I, but when I first started on council and stuff like that, there was a whole different community of people living on Wall Street. So it has definitely changed in the last 10 years, the residents that have purchased homes up there. And my understanding initially was that the original residents, not the original 120 years ago, but the original residents of those homes actually owned that road. And that was why for so many years that they owned the rights to the road all the way to the wall, to the maintenance wall.
I hadn't heard that.
Now,
Are you speaking like between 14th and 16th, that section?
yes,
That is correct. Most of that is not city right away. It's mostly owned by adjacent property owners. There are sections.
Oh, yeah,
that
I'm
are-
sorry, Kate, I was thinking your.
right, no, yeah,
I
yeah.
got you, yeah.
And so to my understanding, like I read all the comments, I didn't watch the video yet, but I will. they're asking now to be kind of, that road to be kind of incorporated. It's not the right word, but it is to be taken over by our maintenance crew. I think that's a good opportunity for a work session too, because I just want those property owners to know that it wasn't that we were neglecting you. It was that absolutely the properties, the people that you bought the house from opted out of that coverage. So I just wanted to be kind of
And
clear.
I'm so sorry, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was just
So
talking.
you're addressing when we spoke, regarding the maintenance on the walls, on Wall Street.
What- right.
14th and 16th.
So, I mean, and Andy, if we could just,
However, 16th is owned by the city of Idaho Springs.
Yes.
And
I think
that
the-
is the most dangerous road.
I think there's a lot of
The
cleanup
hill there is in right
opportunities.
away.
Yeah, I think there's, I just said that there's
Yeah.
a very good opportunity for a meeting to like clean it up, like in however we can do that. But making it better, I don't know what the end result of that one looks like, cause
We would never allow houses up.
On that hill.
ever.
I know, it's crazy.
That was like
I thought, you
a
know,
really, really bad decision by, I guess.
and they're big houses too. It's not like they're small.
How would a fire truck ever get up there?
Have you guys had emergency vehicles up there?
An ambulance has gone by before. But my unfortunate trip, the ambulance, they couldn't get up, so I had to go in the gurney down the road to
Yeah.
Joel's house. in the
Yeah.
corner.
It's,
Oh, I hated it. It was, I mean, not just that part, the ambulance ride stuff.
oh
That would
yeah.
be lying in a bed in a car, that would be nice.
I'll just take the car.
I know, right?
And my husband can, inject me
Oh, there you
10
go.
times trying to get my IV in too. I'm like,
You know,
I was like, just give up, I'll just die in the back of the.
140 years ago, if they ever knew we were gonna have cars, they never would have allowed that.
Now, I mean, even our wall is pretty rickety, you know, I mean, it's better than it was probably when you guys moved in, but man, I was coming up and I wasn't driving very fast, but I hit the top and there was another car right there,
Mhm.
right at your house and back, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, hi, we're gonna back down together in sync. Like,
This year was just the worst. We hadn't, and we're all coming together now, but we hadn't minded it so much in the past. You know, it was maintained. But this year there was 4 feet of snow and it wasn't cleared for 3 days. And then the runoff and then the ditch, it just became very unsafe. We were all kind of taken back. We're like, all right, I guess we need to get on the regular scheduled board or, you know, the board of maintenance. Because we used to be able to just call, you know, text John Bardoni and like, you're the next, it was magical. And kept that up for a bit, but then it just kind of dwindled. But yeah, the downhill is owned by the city and I consider it extremely dangerous. I've actually slid into Colorado Boulevard
You know,
in the winter.
I want you to know, if we just said public safety is everything, that road would be closed to vehicular traffic.
it would.
In the
No,
winter.
I could, you know, I had an interesting idea. Tim Hicks said, what if we reverse the direction of the road? And then your steepest is a
Oh, I got
climb
you.
up and the less steep, and I
That
think
could
it's a
be
two.
an
That's a very good idea.
difference.
That
Why don't we just-
actually is
Why
not
don't
a
we
bad
do it as a
idea.
trial? You wanna,
Well, we're actually,
This is on the work session
Yes.
agenda for more discussion on the 25th of November.
and I'll get you a packet of everything we've discussed prior to that.
I think it's a great idea. It was at least a trial.
Yeah, isn't that, I thought it was an
Yeah,
interesting
Going
idea.
up
I mean,
hill might
Chris-
be interesting.
Chris, our past chief, wanted to do that to.
Except in the
And
snow
I
and ice.
said, the only problem, and you guys will have the same problem, is that when you're parking, you're gonna park
Whatever.
your neighbor.
The other side? My driveway?
Oh, that's your driveway.
Well-
I'm in your driveway, and
Chucky, did you not hear it last night at like 10 o'clock? One of the babies got separated from the mom and it was barking all the way down Virginia.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we heard, I was like, I thought it was somebody on the ground.
It doesn't say stop.
I was like, that doesn't sound like a
It does.
I guess they don't do crack anymore. I don't know. It's like a bark. It sounded like somebody was throwing up. That's what I heard. But it was like, rah, rah, really angry little bark too. So, he was like, where's mom? Yeah, it's like, they've definitely been around the last couple of days, so I'm like, after council being like,
Wow.
I don't wanna go on.
That too, wash your car anyway.
I hear from
Yeah.
I think that's when we hit it.
Jeremy?
The next guy will get on.
Yeah, he's remote. He did a 10 works.
Okay.
Remotely.
Just so you know, Kate, the only way I've been able to find Wall Street sticking up.
No, it wasn't.
From west to east.
Yeah, you did like that.
Yeah, I don't
I could
know.
never make it up.
I don't care how you get it done on my street. That street, just for the record, everybody, that was off the,
Oh, boy.
wasn't on the agenda, but when I got on the council, and it was always a conversation.
About 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I was loud, they're all like, did you get Wall Street? Did you get Wall Street?
11, so.
Oh, wow.
Maybe like battery.
Yeah, full 10 days there.
I find it kind of
Wonder how
interesting
you
that they
do it.
didn't have to disclose it.
Yeah.
Really, that
How you doing?
Good.
technically when you buy the house, you're in charge of the road.
Well, do they not give you like So Dylan, we're good?
Yep.
All right. Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome everyone to the October 28th, 2024 regular city council meeting for the city of Idaho Springs. We'll call to order at 7:02. And I'd like to start off with roll call, please.
Jim Clark, Scott Pennell.
Here.
Janine Mariani.
Here.
Lisa Manifold. Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones.
Here.
Kay Collier.
Here,
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Here.
Thank you.
All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We have an agenda before us tonight. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda for the October 28th, 2024 meeting.
Thank you, Janine. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Kate. Any discussion? All right, then all those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Does anyone tonight feel they have a conflict of interest? All right, hearing none, I will move on to approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes from October 14th, 2024.
Thank you, Scott. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Janine. And any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll move to approval of the bills. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the bills to October 28th, 2024.
Thank you, Kate. And do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Scott. Thank you. And any discussion of the bills? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Janine Mariani.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Kay Collier.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. And do we have any public comment online perhaps?
I don't see anyone online, no.
All right. Then we've already had our finance officer. So we will move to resolutions. Starting with number 21, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21, series 2024, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement establishing the Clear Creek Housing Authority.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Janine. And any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Janine Mariani.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. All right, we will move to ordinance, first reading, and do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 21, series 2024, an ordinance vacating a portion of the alleyway between lot 1 of the block 57, former Gold Digger Field subdivision, and block 55 of the city of Idaho Springs, Colorado.
Thank you, Janine. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Kate. And any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Janine Mariani,
Yes.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. All right, we have no ordinance second readings tonight. City Attorney, thank you so much, Nick, for being with us. Nothing for us tonight. All
Nice
right,
being here in person, that's about it.
all right, well, thank you. City Administrator, Andy, we have 4 requests for action. And I'd like to start off with the one about ARPA dollars. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the use of the city's American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds in the amount of $455,911 for water and sewer infrastructure projects.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Second from Lisa. And any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Janine Mariani,
Yes.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Kate Collier,
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. Second item for Spectrum. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve a bid from Spectrum General Contractors in the amount of $55,792.76 for the rehabilitation of the Powerhouse, account number 21-61-7042.
All right, thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Second from Lisa. And any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Janine Mariani,
Yes.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. And third one for parking. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve an addendum to the agreement for parking management services with Interstate Parking Company of Colorado to amend the termination date from October 31, 24 to April 30th, 25.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Scott. And any discussion?
Yeah, why are we moving that back? I thought the goal was to get rid of that service altogether and take it on within the city. Is not still something that we want to do?
Well, I don't know that we do that in-house. It was one thing that we're gonna look at. We're gonna put out a request for proposal. And I would just say, it could even be the technology that we need. For example, if we were to bring it in-house. Or we may have a better situation with another parking company. Or perhaps the one that we're using, Interstate, may do a better price. So it was one thing, frankly, I think we probably would have been further along, my opinion, if Jonathan Kane had not gone to Netherlands,
Right.
because he was very much on this particular subject.
Yep.
But I believe that regardless of how this falls, we will we will have taken care of this in the next 6-8 months.
Is that through a study? Are we, Jonathan was doing a study to base his decisions on, right?
I hope we don't pay for another study.
I'm just giving an example. Mayor Gary in Estes Park, they do something entirely different. They just pay a fee for services. They don't do a revenue split of any kind. So that was something that we hadn't even discussed.
Does this mean that we will be looking at the contract?
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
and I cannot remember, so maybe Andy, if you know this off the top of your head, and if you don't, that's fine. What does our contract what is our fee split and do we pay a fee as well as a
I
revenue split?
can tell you, it's a 50-50 revenue split. They take roughly 2/3 of the citation money because there is,
Like a rental fee for the
It-
equipment and
and-
stuff? That would be
well, you know, the citations, frankly, a lot of times you're just chasing a loose end, you know, you may never collect, so it's much more labor intensive. However, we don't want it to be an incentive to write more citations also.
No, but do we pay any other fees in addition to a 50/50? It's just a 50/50.
No, they actually incur the signage, and I'm afraid we have had a lot of signage changes.
Mhm.
That's part of the contract. Andy, anything else you can think of that's pretty germane?
I will say that we do have a good final draft of the request for proposal that is done. We just have to update that and get that issued. So I think having this 6-month extension will allow us to get that RFP out, evaluate it, and then decide what direction we want to go.
Gotcha, okay.
You touched on the signage. Are we in contact? I know there's a few changes and stuff. We stay in touch with changes in signage. I know that one area by Carlson was 3-hour at one time, and I think that was because the school parking. I don't know if that got updated or not, but there is lost revenue if we don't keep some of, I mean, we could capture paid parking, and I think there's a few little
I know
spots that.
the library would like only 1 hour, but I thought we changed
And
that.
I'm sorry, I thought the 1 hour, is 1 hour up, Kate? Do you know? The 1 hour signs aren't up yet?
I don't think so, no, I was
Oh,
just there
boy,
today.
all
so-
right.
I'll follow up.
So I
Because they
don't
really
know.
would like those to
Yeah,
be only
who's
1 hour.
It's kind of a
designated
huge
for
thing for the
staying on
library,
top?
really,
Is that
is that we
just
can't get
something
anybody in
the
there.
city employee has to remind them that we need these? So it's a job, I mean. it's
Well,
definitely-
yeah, and I'm not getting off a topic, but since signage is part of the contract and we have made a lot of changes, it's been exacerbated by the mountain bike park and
Yeah.
there
It's a
needs
big
to be,
project.
well, and you know, we tried to get ahead of it with additional signage in the neighborhoods and it seems to work. I don't see
Not
mountain
overflowing
bike-
into our neighborhood yet.
mountain bike park folks
Well,
in, on our streets.
And that is absolutely true, and you've seen me on Facebook. I did want to throw one thing out there that's not really related to this, but a little bit. Now that Carlson is gone, and because the kids don't have the pathway over the road yet, it would be really nice if we could talk and negotiate with the school district for a bus stop at the library. Because it would be, I think it'd be an opportunity for parents to be like, okay, my kid's safe getting over the road. And we could stop right there, and this used to be a hangout. I mean, I still buy snacks for the kiddos for after school, and Troy Erickson generously helps us get more for
Oh,
after
nice.
school projects. So again, it's just another, let's give the parents an easier ride, here the kids are safe. They don't have to cross the roads, but if we could put it out there, Andy, that would be amazing.
Is there a bus stop at the rec center as well?
There is.
There is.
Okay.
And I mean, didn't the bus
That's
used
a
to?
middle and a high school bus stop.
Yeah,
That's
and
not a little.
It's
bus
not a
stop.
littles, it's really for the littles, because the big guys could walk over. But wasn't there a bus stop in front of Carlson? I mean, didn't they pick up
I
right
thought it was on 13th, wasn't it?
on
Yeah.
13th? So even if we utilize the same spot, which is what I think Scott's talking about, then it really doesn't change your street very much. And it could be 3-hour parking for, maybe after 3 or something like that, I don't know. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, we do need to reevaluate that parking all the way around Carlson.
How are the little kids getting across right now? They're all walking?
I'm assuming that their parents are picking them up, because I mean, really, our numbers have drastically dropped since Carlson has relocated.
All right, so,
Mayor, I think,
yes.
Chief may have.
Oh, sorry, Chief.
I don't need to make this longer, but I'm under the impression the school district is also doing a littles pickup and drop off in front of the rec center. Because they didn't, for some parents didn't want their kids having
Yeah,
to
so maybe
go
that
across.
was
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Okay.
So, and
Good.
I just wanted to share that, and also in our monitoring the school and the kids coming and going, we're seeing about anywhere from 6 to a dozen that are actually walking and just walking.
Chief, that's
To
it?
share that.
Maybe a dozen?
That's a
Yeah,
scary
a
walkway.
lot of
I don't
parents
like
are
walkway.
taking their kids.
Gotcha.
Is what is happening.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit of a hardship on the parents. So maybe if it's just one extra, like, see if the PTO wants to, encourage it within the school and would they want the kids to come to the library? I mean, I can even go the back way and say, ask Libby if she wants to go to the PTO.
So, yeah, I know you don't wanna prolong the meeting, but this is a great topic.
You're looking at Oh, all of us.
I just, in your opinion, do you have some concerns with younger people walking that path? What would be your concerns there?
Are you talking about going across where the interstate exits and on-ramps are?
Yes, where are the,
Yes, there are.
where are the hot spots or where are the concern spots?
Okay, I'm gonna have Chief answer, but then we have to get back
Move
to
on?
the
Okay,
agenda.
okay.
I mean, the found off-ramp is probably the biggest concern because that's the side that most of the kids are on. The school actually was having someone at that spot during school opening. So I think they've since removed that person because there wasn't enough kids that were actually taking that route. So I could be wrong about that, but I think they've removed that. So that's the big concern.
I don't want an accident happening. I just want us to be proactive and
Absolutely.
discussing some of this stuff.
All right, so I have a motion and a second on the parking management. No, we're good. And is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Janine Mariani,
Yes.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Dick Collier,
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. And lastly, pumpkin smash. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the sponsorship of the annual pumpkin snash in the amount of 800 from account 10-21-5032.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Lisa. And any discussion?
What does that money actually go to? Like, what is,
It's just helping with the whole
what
event.
do they like have that they pay for?
It's pumpkin
catapult.
like the catapult and throwing the, like after Halloween, you throw in.
And then I think they have a
They
recycling
recycle
trailer.
goats and
don't
stuff
they?
like that, yeah. They have like a big truck that all the pumpkins go in, they go to the, like, they take it to a farm for goats and stuff like that, yeah.
And then we eat the goats. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
Jesus.
Sorry. I gotta get back to.
Are we in Springfield? What's happening? Is there eating all the
All right,
pets over
any further discussion?
No.
All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Janine Mariani,
Yes.
Lisa Manifold. Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Andy, before we move on, just want to check in and make sure you didn't have anything further.
Just a reminder about the grand opening for the Public Works Facility, this Wednesday from 4 to 6. I believe there'll be some food and picnic there.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
grand opening of the Public Works Facility. If any council members have not been in, I'm telling you, you are going to be amazed.
I really want to check it out.
And invite your neighbors. It is designed to be a community event. I know it might not be of great interest to everybody. I mean, but it is a very nice facility right next door to our wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, no, it came out really nice. Dylan, did you have anything for us tonight? No. All right, well, thank you, sir. And Wonder, anything for us tonight?
No, Mayor, I don't have.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. And Chief, have your report. Just want to make sure you didn't have anything further. Okay, thank you. And let's see, Public Works, Paul's not here. Ed, thank you for your report. And we do have one request for action. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the purchase of Gorman Rupp vertical turbine pump to replace failing pump at water treatment plant at a cost of $26,398.57 from line item number 51-72-7320.
Thank you, Janine. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Lisa. And any discussion?
Could you say
I just
something?
wanted to say that I put Gorman Rupp, but what I meant to put was Pools.
Oh, okay,
There is no Gorman Rupp pump on the quote.
all right. Thank you for that, for that clarification, Ed.
Was this the pump that you mentioned before? I think you mentioned 2 meetings ago,
Yes,
that was started, like you said, you were gonna come ask for it at our last work
Yes,
session,
this is
but
exactly,
Okay.
this is the pump that, started acting up, I would say, 10 years ago or so. I noticed that it was starting to not work as well. So I fiddled with it with my magic fingers and made it work better. And it's been hanging on all this time. And I had lots of quotes and lots of information about which stuff. And the Gould's pump is really the one that we want. That's the one I want. because it's-
and thank you, Ed, because you did get, 2 pricing for us. One was a Franklin and the other one was Gould's. And, anyway,
Right.
so we have, pricing for the, really good.
Right, and there is another quote for the Franklin pump with a company that could get parts from Franklin, which was really extremely similar to what,
Yeah,
Water Technology Group would do. But Water Technology Group specifically works with Gould.
all right, well, I have a first and a second. Any further discussion?
Mayor, I'd probably just like for clarification, I just have Janine move to amend her motion to be for the.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Janine, would you, for the record, amend your motion, to reflect the Gould pump instead of the Gorman Rupp?
Thank you, Jimmy.
Gould.
Mm-hmm.
Gould.
Should I just say
Gould.
it again with that?
You could just say I
Okay.
move to amend my motion to be for the purchase of a Gould's pump.
I move to amend my motion to be for the purchase of the Gould pump.
Thank you, and Lisa,
I will second that amendment.
all right, very good. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Janine Mariani,
Yes.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. All right, under mayor and council, I only have one thing tonight. Andy's gonna be on a well-deserved vacation from the 1st to the 10th or the 11th. You'll be back on the 12th.
I will.
And also, speaking of the 12th, that is our next work session, and I don't want it to catch anybody by surprise, because normally it would be November 11th, which is a Monday, but because of Veterans Day, we're gonna have it on the 12th. And does anybody have anything further to share with us tonight?
This will be my last in-person meeting for a while.
Oh, yeah.
I will be out for, and I don't know how long, and we'll figure it out as it goes, but I will be zooming for
Okay.
whenever, as soon as I'm available.
All right, that's good to know. Anything further tonight?
Don't forget, you and Andy and I and Maria are going on that field trip tomorrow.
I know, I'm looking forward to it. I will
All the
see
way to
you.
Reddit.
We said
Kansas,
6,
right?
Practically, or Nebraska,
we said 6:30 at the water treatment or the sewer.
at the waste plant.
Yes, and I will probably be 10 minutes early because I can't wait to get there.
And we have to pick up Andy.
At
And
7.
coffee. And
7, Andy said he's buying Starbucks on Colorado Boulevard.
Sweet.
Yeah, no, I'm teasing.
That's right. Sure.
I'll accept.
I'll be waiting.
All right, okay, anything further before we adjourn?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes, Lisa.
Sorry, I did listen to part of the work session on the way down. And I know that it is challenging, but I really appreciate that we're going to be meeting with the residents of West Side Wall Street, because I heard some of that discussion.
Yeah.
I think it is, I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think the fact that everybody's on the same page, because I have talked to the residents more than once, and I said, look, y'all, you gotta get on the same page, and I think they have done that. So I'm very glad to know that they are on the schedule and we're gonna be talking to them.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, well, good. All right, anything further before we adjourn?
Janine was asking about this.
I was just wondering about
What?
this letter.
Yeah,
From Dan.
It's the little,
it's a
the
little
yellow,
yellow.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a very nice,
well, it was nice of him to donate it to the city. And the batteries are dead. We're gonna have to find someone noble downtown that will let us, it can plug into a regular wall outlet, to give it enough juice to move it. And his hope is that it will promote smiles on people's faces, and I have seen people taking photos with it. I think Chief has seen that as well. So it is a curiosity item,
Totally.
and it was very kind of him to donate it, and it would help if we were all like Ed and more of an electrical minded individual, because it's got some interesting tendencies. So anyways,
Mayor, if I could ask, it's brought up, do you want to take action on it tonight, or would you like to have a certain evaluation done on it first, or what's your thought? 'Cause
I just would be hesitant to do an evaluation. I mean, it's a free gift, and
Maybe Jimmy, like, would Jim be able to look at it and figure out like, you know? I mean, it's a battery operated little kind of team. I'm just trying to think what the use for it would be. I mean, it's almost the size of a bathtub, so.
yeah,
basically a
I think its life is just going to be public relations.
Yeah.
It's considered a type of mobility scooter.
You know,
Actually.
it might be something that if the kids wanna like paint each year as like part of their,
Like a,
like, I don't know, like an art thing, like they paint it.
yeah,
Maybe
like
the
an art
sixth
car.
grade, art car or something like
Gotcha.
that, like they do cows in different places.
Could
I
be
don't
some,
know, that's all I got.
I guess my question would be, if you feel ready to take action on it as far as accepting the offer of the donation, I think that would be okay to do that tonight.
Is everybody all right with accepting the gift from Dandel?
Sure.
Is anyone opposed? We should. Thank you. That is an excellent idea.
Good idea.
Goes on.
In fact, I talked to Dan Sunday about it. So, all right, well, thank you. I appreciate everybody's input on that, and we'll call it adjourned at 7:00.